Okay, so how about if each of the facilitators maybe takes 2 or 3 minutes to kind of give a recap of things they discussed, ideas, grant ideas. What did we learn from each other? Linda, you want to start?
Sure, thank you. Well, we were fortunate. We had 2 people who have very similar focus for their grants, and that is preschool and unreached or unchurched parents of those preschoolers. We talked a lot about how to make the grant focus gospel outreach and how to, as that is the primary, what are the things that will support that happening? And then I think the other important thing that we got when Nyla popped in, thank you, Nyla, was understanding the passion and how to put what you really love about your preschool, what you really love about your parents, how to put that into an effective grant focus so that you're drawing people into something that you already love. I think those were a couple of the highlights. And also, I think the third probably best was to set a timeline for where they're going to be each month, how they're going to have progress toward getting this grant put together on a timely basis so that by August, they're ready to submit.
Great, great. Great suggestions. Thanks for sharing that. Jenny, are you ready to give a recap?
Okay, we had a kind of variance of grants. One is more geared towards a school and agricultural type program, reaching the children that way, to the other one reaching out with the Muslim community, doing training and outreach, and again focusing on the gospel aspect of the grants, and how to tailor towards that. And we went over different ways to put in the invoices or the costs. We have one grant that was well started into the writing process, and one hasn't begun yet. But again, very appreciative of taking the time to explain the process and to encourage and to ensure that the success in writing a proposed grant to be put on the ballot.
Okay, great. How about you, Melissa?
So I had Pastor Song, and he works with first-generation immigrants and largely female population in his congregation. So he would like to do an English as a second language program that would use gospel materials, but he needs support for equipment, projector, screen, those kinds of things. So we're going to partner up. He's going to partner up with another Korean pastor that's second generation, that will help him write up the grant, and I will help also.
Awesome.
Then we had another a person, Diane from Lancaster, that they have a preschool and a day school and outreach to the community, and they've had like 5 families join the church, and that's really awesome. They have that focus of outreach. They want to start an after-school program for families, so a family outreach to their community. And then Steve Rice is interested in doing work with single mothers in the border region. So that's his idea, helping border region ministries with outreach to single mothers, which is again the majority of the people that they serve.
Awesome. And Chris?
Okay, my group was a group of LWML members all from the same church, and they've already have been exploring the needs in their community and how to partner with other like a charity or an organization in the community. And we talked about the demographics of the community and the need for in the area of domestic violence. There's a charity that has homes for battered women. And so we talked about, ways to, that they're still exploring, how to address the needs for the gospel with the women that are involved in that organization.
Okay. Great, man, this is so exciting to hear of all these different things that are going on. There's definitely needs for all of it. And I will certainly put it all in prayer that your plans come together and your gospel outreach is effective and meaningful to all these people who have the needs in different areas. Okay. So at this point, our agenda states that we will be going on to the grant guidelines and the grant administrator discussion. So Jenny Reyes is going to handle that with us. Jenny?
Okay, sorry. So we'll just start with the, Melissa went over that cover page when you're writing up your grant. That is so important. If you just follow that checklist, then everything should be complete on your application. So just kind of briefly going over the application. Who is the submitter for the grant? The submitter is the person who initiates the grant. They make sure that all parts of the grant are complete. It could be an LWML member, a grant recipient, or an administrator can submit for that. The second part is the LWML member. You need to have the LWML member's name and their signature, and you are responsible to get the signatures for everybody on the application. And the grant administrator is the person that administrates the grant money received. They're the one that writes the check, deposit the funds. It's generally your church bookkeeper, the head of the charity organization. It is not an LWML treasurer. It's not anybody from an LWML group. It needs to be either from the entity or through your church. The VP of Gospel Outreach is not the grant administrator. It's the person in your organization. And so they all have to agree to this and they all have to sign, and the signatures are what's required in the blue ink.
And keep in mind, especially now, maybe under the COVID guidelines, you might not all, maybe on a normal day, you would be all in the same office, but you're not. So make sure you allow, maybe 3 to 4 days to get each of these signatures. So when you're talking about a deadline that you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signatures on potentially, one or two of those might be duplicates, you need to probably allow 3 weeks to get all those signatures in wet ink, okay?
Yes.
That's one mistake I made many moons ago, that we started to try and get the signatures on the last day and it was not gonna happen.
Yes, and then there's no chance to review it. And the other really important on the application that gets missed on a large majority of them, did this organization receive monies from a PSD LWML grant in the previous biennium? Yes or no? I can't tell you how many people I had to call to just ask that question. So again, just early, do it early, reread, and do it early so that you have the time to get all the required information together. Information as far as how your costs, your invoices, all that important information. So if we go over the guidelines, did everybody get a chance to get a copy of the mission grant guidelines? So
Jenny, Barbara has a question.
oh yes.
Thank you. I just was noticing the grant administrator signs twice, apparently, right at the very bottom. They're answering that question about whether they received funds.
Yes.
And then they sign up above with their address and whatnot. So
Correct.
So when you have them in at a desk with a blue pen, you get them twice. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm just going to kind of go over the highlighted areas because there's a lot of information on here. Although number one, the grant should be keeping in the mission and ministry of the Lutheran Women's Missionary League and the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Again, that the gospel outreach. The grant is to have a viable mission and outreach plans that focus on sharing the gospel. Real important, the grant money is to be administered and dispersed for work within the Pacific Southwest District geographical area. So it needs to be within our district area. It can't be.
Linda, I think Linda has a question, or Linda, you're muted.
Mention more.
There we go. It would be good, just in case not everyone is familiar, what is our area? What does our district cover?
Okay, we're in Southern California. The northernmost part of our district in California is probably around like
Santa Barbara?
Ojai, Salving kind of area, Goleta maybe. And then we go into Nevada, most of Nevada, and Arizona.
Southern Nevada.
And we do have 3 churches in Utah.
Yes, we do
Utah.
have 3 churches in Utah that they may align with the circuits in Utah, but they align for LWML purposes with us in the Pacific Southwest District. Does that help? Okay, go on, Jenny.
And then the grant cannot have been funded within the previous biennium under its big word here, constituted organizational name. So you just have to be aware you can't have it, like one church had in the previous biennium and then they applied for another one and it was still for the church. It wasn't a different area of the church ministry. It was basically for the same thing. So we can't.
So if it's the church one time and the school one time, that's still not allowed, right?
Right.
Unless there's a biennium in between.
Yes. And a biennium is our 2-year period. And the grant funding can't be concurrent with the national grant. If you've got a national grant, they can't be at the same time. Once your national grant has been funded or that period is up, then you could apply for one for a district grant. The grant funding needs to be for an established entity, not an individual. Grants are not intended to fund salaries, living expenses, personal tuition, or other expenses of an individual nature. It's for the entity or the charity. Grant funding for should have continued maintenance and support of the LWML funding. And Melissa had touched on that earlier. Like the one grant, they were heavy for the equipment, but it was an ongoing ministry that they have to the preschool families. So that's a good thing to do. Application must have been cleared with the proposed grant administrator. So just making sure you're getting permission from the grant administrator, the person who's going to be responsible for the money, that they're willing to take on that responsibility and do what they need to do as far as the funding and that goes. It's for $10,000 or less. If you don't need $10,000, don't ask for $10,000. That would, one, you just need to fund for what your needs are, and that might make that available for another grant to be approved. So we've had one on this biennium. We've gone, I think $3,000 was the least one that we had, but there's different varying amounts. So not every grant has to be for $10,000. It just needs to cover the needs of your proposed grant. Let's see. They have to meet the intention of the Gospel Outreach Mission Grant Program as well as the specific guidelines. Only one project can be submitted by an organization at a time. You may not request for a multicultural mission grant and a mission grant in the same biennium.
And we'll cover that a little bit later, right, Jenny? As far as what a multicultural mini grant is.
Yes, we'll cover that. Dolores?
I have a question. and I may have missed you saying it. Did you cover number 8? Grant money must be used within biennium for the specific purpose approved.
I did not. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, my question, Jenny, is now the grants get paid out during the biennium. So if my recipient gets the money right before the end of the biennium, and it's something that was going to be, I'm having a hard time understanding that, all depending on what their grant was for. If it was to buy equipment for videoing, I can understand that it can be spent, quickly. But if the grant was for something that may have required a little time to spend that money, how does that work?
Mhm.
Sorry about my feedback here. I'd have to really kind of look in that a little more and maybe get back to you about that, because some of the funds could have already been spent and that grant would be reimbursing the funds that have already been spent, since it's an ongoing kind of ministry.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like Sue's example of those weekly fellowship events, if they don't start them until they get the money and they get the money at the end of the biennium, maybe over the next, maybe we should just say in a 2-year period or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good point. Good.
Let's look a little further into.
Yeah, I think some of those things will have to be determined on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the ministry is gonna do.
Okay, well, that's a good answer for what I was looking for, that it can be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So,
Oh, yes.
Okay, Steve has a question.
Yeah, that would pertain to me on our previous grants, because obviously I couldn't get a truck for $10,000, and so I have 2 grants from you folks from 4 years apart, and by accumulating the funds, that's how we did it, and it was a time constraint trying to find a vehicle even at that time. So that I think that probably needs, number 8 needs to be reworded a little bit, but definitely put a timeline on it.
Yes, that's a good point that you brought up, and something we can follow up on.
Okay.
Okay. Gospel outreach mission grants are intended to help support grants that focus on reaching people with the gospel. You're kind of getting the theme there. The gospel. These include and are not limited to funding for equipment, supplies, printing, training materials, software repairs, other projects that will help people to see their need for a Savior, appreciate our Savior's love, and respond with faith to the relation that God offers them in Jesus. We do funding for partial scholarships. The scholars need to benefit multiple students. I think the St. James, they paid a month for the students there to help with that. I know we've had a couple this biennium that were for preschools for funding for scholarships. So those are fine, but they just have to help benefit multiple students. So we want you to submit 1 original and 8 copies. And you're going to send them to me, the Vice President of Gospel Outreach. My contact information is at the bottom of the form. Before you submit it, if you have questions along the way, feel free to reach out to me. And I think the facilitators that you broke out with will also be sharing their contact information. So, feel free to partner with us. Again, the whole idea is to get a successful grant written to be submitted to the ballot for consideration at convention.
And I'm noticing, Jenny, that you have yellow highlights on some of this information. You want to share why that is?
Because these are the common mistakes and areas that get missed. And these are the very important parts. It's all important, but the highlighted ones are just very important. And these are the areas that we find get missed. And so we want to, again, make sure that we're empowering you to be successful. Okay.
Linda has a question or a
Yeah.
comment.
Under that first point on page 2, submit 1 original, 8 copies, and it goes on and it says, do not include extraneous or supplemental items. When I had this position 15 years ago, I had pictures, I had videos, I had booklets. 16, we were getting 16 copies at that time. That was a lot of stuff that was coming in that we could not deal with. We just set it aside, and it's sadly a kind of a wasted effort on the part of the submitter to send all that stuff, and it doesn't bode favorably because it means you didn't read and follow that direction, number one, and number two, you've just put an extra burden on the people receiving the grants. So you will have an opportunity to share pictures at another time, but not with the submitting of the grant.
And, you know, these rules are specific to our process. You may find other, if you work in other districts or at the national level, you may find different rules. So, you know, if you're submitting a grant for our Pacific Southwest District, these are our rules. Okay.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. Where's on the, I think it's the fourth whereas, I can't remember, third or fourth. It says state amount requested and the purpose for which the funds will be used. Okay, I can state the amount. I'm concerned about the word purpose. And when I think about the word purpose, I'm thinking, do I describe the mission again, or do I describe itemized, closer to itemized kind of things? Is it just the mission? And then I'm thinking that, I know that you said that in the beginning, there will be a couple things that you rewrite, but just do it, just follow the directions, but it'll kind of seem like it's redundant or what. So I just didn't know about that one. And then, yeah, could you, then I have another question too. One project, can your project be twofold? Like ours is outreach and training. Is that still considered one project? And then I have one more question. So, the national, we are a non-funded ministry, and this will be like how we'll be able to survive is through the LWML. We don't have like church, like all those members that give in the offering. We're like going out into to reach the lost, and most of them, cannot, are hungry, and we just need services. So that's what we do. So my question is, if there's a national one and there's a district one, and there is a cross-cultural grant, if I wanted to kind of align us up so that we could be funded for the next 5 years, would you help me with a benchmark of how I would get one grant and then the next grant and then the next grant so that we could continue our ministry? Would that be a possibility?
So there's no additional funding for your ministry? It's just solely wanting to rely on the LWML?
Solely on the Holy Spirit. LWML is, part of the Holy Spirit on that. Yeah, mission funds, totally donors, and that we're not getting a donor base, especially during COVID. So, and not only that, we expect to grow. We've gone from one family to probably 8 families. But 9 Muslims that attend regularly along with American missionaries. But we are projecting that we would like to see 100 people at our Halloween event, because what we do is we take our base of people that are coming and they invite people to come. That way we can make our church larger, and the Bible study on Thursday nights reaches more people. So somehow I would like to have, if somebody could help me with a benchmark. I don't want to miss out because I was ignorant of deadlines and time situations and case-to-case studies. I would like to have some help in that if possible.
Okay, so you need more information on the guidelines for the deadlines for the national grant along with our district grant?
I understand that you said if you have a national grant, you can't have a district grant.
Correct.
And our national grant, we're thinking about partnering with another Muslim ministry that's in Chicago. So I'm trying to figure out if you can help me out on how I could make those benchmarks. Like, do we get the district one in what, 2022, if we get it? And then you can't apply for the national one until that kind of thing. So,
Then, okay, I'll jump in here, Jenny. The national is on the off year of ours. So we're voting for national grants here in 2021. That deadline has already passed.
Okay.
The 2022 is the district. The 2023 will be national. And that deadline will probably be somewhere in around September 1st, 2022.
okay, and how about the cross-cultural one? How does that come into play?
We'll cover that in the next section.
Okay.
On that. But one thing that you mentioned earlier also was about training. I think it's really important to have some training built into your budget to help us understand that this is an ongoing thing. We are not a one and done ministry, because we want to fund things that are ongoing. So that's I think where Jenny's a little bit struggling to say, if you're only relying on the LWML, that's kind of not what we want to see. We're afraid that it's going to be money that another ministry doesn't get, and then you'll be done if you don't get another grant. So we really would like to see that you have some other funding sources besides just the LWML grant. I mean, it would be a great kickstart, but we want to see how you're building on that.
Right, we're very grateful to be part of LWML, and making disciples and having those disciples make disciples is the growth kind of training that we're doing. So yeah, we have the Thrivent, and we're working on a donor base. If you have any ideas of how there are more grants for us to use, that would be great too. So yeah, and coming to this forum today, I heard my partner in the group said, or somebody said, they just go to a certain donor if they know they need something. So I thought that was very good information too. So no, and we're only 7 months old. So yeah, this will be like a jump start, and hopefully in the next couple of years, you know, like you said, there'll be a place where this works out a little bit more. And we do receive district mission funds too. So that's a good place too. But thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments about this section here?
I didn't get the answer on the whereas, state the amount requested in the purpose. So what does that mean by the purpose?
Okay. Let me get to the whereas. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there are examples on there. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, at the bottom of the guidelines, Sue, there's some examples of the whereas statements. Maybe that would help you. Have you seen that?
No, I was just looking. Okay, I could do that. Thank you, Nyla.
And it's basically a, you know, resummarization of what you're going to be using the funds for. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, summarizing, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara has a question.
Thank you. Just before we go too much further, on number 9, where the application is cleared with the proposed grant administrator, what is involved from the grant administrator's point of view in tracking these funds, or what is there paperwork to submit, or I just wondered.
Yes, once if the grant is approved at convention, then a letter will be sent out notifying you that the grant has been approved. It'll also have attached with it the requisition form to request how to request the funding, and that's something that the grant administrator would need to fill out. And then with filling out that request for the money, we're also going to be asking for, again, the information probably that was sent in with the grant, the itemization of the funds, how you're going to be spending your funds. So that information will be requested to be sent in. They receive the funds, and then we don't ask for follow-up afterwards. So you're not required to send in receipts that we've spent this. That's not something that we require. Basically, they're going to be receiving the money and then dispersing the money to the grant.
And is the grant administrator, Jenny, your main point of contact once the grant is voted in?
They are, and then the grant submitter. I like to let the grant submitter know when the grant has been approved for funding, along with the grant administrator, so that we can coordinate and the grant check presentation, which is the most fun part of this position. Yes,
Okay.
My question is at the convention, when it is voted in, who's going to be receiving the grants, at that point, you notify the grant administrator that they've been selected. Can you also please notify the person who submitted the application so that we could follow up? Because in my case with our last grant, the administrator got it, didn't respond back. And if I was made aware that she had been sent it, I would follow up then. And so it's just a suggestion that if the person who's submitting the grant can be kept in the loop all along, then we will be here at, we will be here to see it through.
I
To
think
get you what you need.
Suggestion to keep the grant submitter in the loop so they know what's going on, because I basically have reached out to the grant administrators. And so,
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for that suggestion. I think that's a great one that we can build on. Anybody else? No? Okay. So again, just remember that you're sending in your original with the 8 copies. It's very important. Don't email them in. We don't accept them email, because again, we keep track of when they come in, when they're received by mail. Then we keep track of when the requisition requests come in, because the grants are all funded based on the order that they've been received. So we keep track of everything. And I know it's frustrating when you get this grant and you want your money, and then you have to wait and wait, and it seems like you wait. But yeah, feel free to reach out and question, where am I in the process? Did you receive it? So we'll try to communicate also with you once everything's been received. If it's been approved to be on the ballot, you'll get a letter letting you know it's been approved. There'll be a chance to set up an exhibit. You don't, lost the word here. You're not going to
Campaign.
I'm sorry?
Campaign.
Thank you. Thank you. I love this stage in life.
Believe me.
Campaign, but there'll be an area where you can set up a presentation about your grant. And the ladies really love it when there's little candies or little things that you make. They really like that. So it's all part of the convention experience. So hopefully we'll be meeting in person. We're prayerfully hoping for that. So you do get an opportunity to campaign for your grant in that way by your presentation.
Maybe use the word inform rather than campaign. We will let them know what the grant is about, but we're not pushing for.
Right.
Yeah, I think the rule is they will have a table to set up,
Yes.
a presentation of materials, but they do not man, no one's sitting there to explain anything, because that's kind of along the lines of campaigning. So
Right.
you just set up a table, or a portion of a table, I think, with, materials about what your grant, there's where you use the pictures and things like that to help help the ladies who are walking past that table to understand how your grant monies will be used.
I've often shared with like pastors for whom English is not a first language. I've simplified it by saying you can't ask other people to vote for your project.
Yes. So make it sound really good in that 50 words for the convention manual. That's where you're going to grab people's attention. Because, you know, we all get those lists prior to convention to go through and all the grants and what we're going to vote on so we can send our delegate. That's how my church had done it in the past, so that the delegate knows to vote for what the group wants. So that's very important. But that's your area right there, those 50 words. Get that in there, that gospel outreach purpose and the funds that are needed. That's just very important because, you know, in this society, we, you know, like the bottom line. Okay. So, and we also want to fund grants that are new, Like you might have a food bank and every year they do this and that and that. Well, we don't want to keep funding that. What we want is, does this food bank, are they going to be offering like a weekend backpack program? So that's the same group that's been funded, but it's a totally different grant. So that's what we're looking for. If you've got an organization and you do a lot of different things, we can look at those as separate ones. But do we just want to fund the same ones over and over? Because there are so many needs out in the community and so many grants that are being considered. We want to be able to fund as many as we can and fund new ones so that the gospel is getting out there to the people who need to hear it, all of us. So the Gospel Outreach Committee, we go over all the grants, we get together. We've done it in person. The last time, even before COVID, we did it over Zoom because that was helpful to the president, who's very busy. So that everybody in the committee gets a copy of the grant, and we have a little worksheet we go through. Everybody reviews it, writes their questions and comments. We come together, and that's when the grants are looked at to see if they're viable, if they meet the criteria, if they're going to be put forward for convention. So that's, if you want to be on the Gospel Outreach Committee, that's a really fun thing to do, is going over those grants and doing that.
Hey,
So,
Jenny, I'm curious, does the district president get a vote?
he gets input. Altogether through the committee, it's decided. I don't think we actually take votes, but we go through and look at them and determine if they're ready to go forward for the convention ballot. But his input is very, very important.
The district president often has information about churches, societies, and/or individuals that he might not be able to share, but he will have a focus as to whether or not this is a viable or acceptable kind of grant. So his input is very important, along with our pastoral counselors, who will give information also as to whether this is going to be a functional or acceptable grant. So that's helpful in terms of a pastoral counselor and our district president, who knows so much about what's going on all across the district.
Yes. And it was, when I first did it, was Pastor Stoddard wrote that a lot of grants request, they want building maintenance or landscaping maintenance or something done that'll make it more attractive. So that's going to be their gospel outreach, because we can draw in more people because our building looks better or our grounds look better. And that's not gospel focused. That's something where your church needs to go through the LCEF and get a loan for that. But yeah, that's not really gospel focused. So those will just pretty much automatically be declined. So we want to reach the people with the gospel. Let's see. Real important, if you have a grant administrator, when you submit the form and that grant administrator changes, make sure that I'm aware, make sure to let us know of those changes because they are our important contact along with the grant submitter. So that's very important to keep that information. So we really want to approve all the grants. So we really just want to go through this process to help you and make sure that you know that we're available if when you're writing your grant, if you have any questions. Yes, Susan.
I've had several ladies in my zone, and I know we only get 50 words. So sometimes we can't get the church name or something in there, and they are always like, well, how do we know that this is, approved by what church? And so I don't know if I've tried to explain to them that you only get the 50 words, and if you can't get the name of your church in there, so I don't know how to, I've tried to explain to them, but they just I get that deer in the headlight look, that it has been approved by the Gospel Outreach Committee. They've read all the reports. They've
Right.
prayed over all the reports. They've got a pastor counselor there, helping them, through all this. But I don't know if there's some way we could maybe give a synopsis and then we could mail it out to everybody. I don't know, but just something like that.
Because the church name or the grant name isn't required on the summary. The summary is to summarize what the gospel outreach purpose of the grant is, and the church name and other names are already on the application that the committee reviews.
Yeah, but the members that I've talked to, they just want to know. I mean, if it says it's the St. James preschool, okay, we kind of understand that, but if it's something else that, maybe isn't a church or a school, but they're helping out, then they're like, well, what church, wrote that and whatnot. So I don't know. These are members that, from the zone that, maybe have never written a grant. So they don't know that, you guys go through all this stuff before you say, yeah, this one can be on the ballot. So I don't know. It's just a thought.
I don't know, Nyla, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think each group will have to determine what their 50-word summary is, and if they think it's important to put the church name in there, if there's a church associated with it, then they should. Otherwise.
But we really want to know the gospel outreach aspect of it.
Right.
The word, that's what's important.
Isn't it unusual when you have the title of the grant that's on the ballot, it will give the gospel outreach focus, and then there's a dash and it usually says where it came from,
Yes.
like St. James, Chula Vista or something along those lines. That isn't part of the 50 words. That's part of the title. And then the 50 words comes after that. So that's how they can get their name in, is that it comes from that location, and that will be on the grant on the ballot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that might give them the assurance they are looking for.
Okay, we're running out of time on this section. So Jenny, you want to just cover the whereas example at the bottom yet, or speak to that in any way? Sue, that's what I was talking about at the bottom of the guidelines, page 3.
Yeah, if you follow along what the examples are with the guideline, it's pretty much a summary of what you've written throughout the grant process, what the mission of it is.
And I really like those last 5 lines of that page 3. It tells you that first whereas, what it should include.
Yes.
Second whereas is the need for the project. The third whereas, if there's a further need. The fourth whereas summarizes those segments, kind of puts it into one little summary. And then what you're asking for is the resolved section. So you've got an example there above those 5 lines. You've got an example from Melissa's grant that she went through earlier, and you've kind of got a definition for each line. So hopefully that will help clarify it. It's a legal way of doing things, and because our voting process is under the bylaws and articles for our corporation. So that's why we do it this way, just to make it all clear that our minutes reflect these whereas and resolve statements.
Thank you.
Could I say something
Yes. Chris.
about the whereas? Okay, if you compare the example, page 4 on the application to the example resolution, there, I see what Sue's talking about. There is a little bit of a difference there, because on the application, it says the 4th whereas is state the amount requested, but on the example on the guidelines, the amount requested is included under the resolved part.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that might be what her confusion might have been. So maybe the application, something, maybe we should look at the application and make sure that that's clarified.
Chris, I think what you find if you look at the examples that are given, like Melissa's example, is that the amount would be the total amount and a summary of what that amount covers in the whereas portion, because you fleshed it out piece by piece in the
Right.
application. This is again a summary in the whereas of why you need this amount. You're going to spend it on equipment and flyers and whatever, but not portion out each price tag
Right.
that's summarized.
Good point. Okay, so we have a break coming up here for, we put it at 15 minutes because on Wednesday we found that 10 minutes wasn't enough. So go have a bio break, grab a cup of coffee or whatever you need to drink, and we'll come back and finish up. We'll start with the questions if there's any remaining questions right now. Okay, so I've got 10:30 on my clock, so I will open it back up. So just close your video and or your microphone, and then just open it up when you come back. Okay? Good job, Jenny. You're muted.
Very good job, Jenny.
We can't hear you, Jenny.
Jenny, you were muted.
She's probably got something else up on her screen, so she can't get to it.
Hmm.
Oh, no, I don't think I can.
Yeah, I was looking at Melissa's whereas, and there's a lot more in her application than there are on the actual application that's online. So got a little lost there, but thank you.
Jenny, I sent you a chat message.
Yes.
Just something to address maybe.
Yes, and I also want to address the website with all the wonderful information. I know, Susan, you've gotten somebody else to take that over, but I just wanted to say what a wonderful job you've
Oh,
done.
awesome.
There's so much information on there. I just think it's fabulous, and I wanted to acknowledge you on that. 'Cause I heard
Thanks,
it's
Jenny.
difficult.
Totally agree.
Who's taking over, if I might ask?
She's just a helper. Denise
Jack.
Jackman.
Okay.
Joanne Sloan knows her, so
Yay.
yay.
Yeah, but the
Yep.
website is just fabulous. Great job.
Yep, I agree.
I agree. And you think back to before we had these technological tools, I mean, life was so different.
Hey, when I was doing grants, there was mail involved. You will mail 18 copies to me.
Yeah.
And I had
You
to
probably
mail
mailed
it to
them a letter
everybody else.
back. Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
And then you got to forward all those on to the committee members. And
yep.
yeah, that gets expensive.
This is a blessing.
It is. It's a blessing to be able to bless others.
That's right. That's why we get blessings.
Blessed to be a blessing.
I tell you,
Amen.
I had quite the week. I have found 3 different pennies this week.
Woo!
Like, woo, working on those mission grants.
Found money is might money.
Is, and I remember that one, the rich man, somebody told a story about the rich man, and he would still stop and pick up change. And they asked him, well, why did you do that? Because every bit of it counts.
That's right. And it adds up.
Yep.
Oh,
Being able to donate online is such a wonderful blessing. I know when the pandemic first started, maybe 2-3 people in the congregation gave online. Now the majority of the people give online. So it's a
We
great.
still have a check writing church.
And that's fine.
Yes,
But we've
Mine does
increased our
both.
donations through COVID. Our
Mhm.
donations have increased, some of them online.
Ours too.
I think it's wonderful.
I know for me with the LWML giving online, because I monthly do it, I know I'm giving more just because you're just putting that on there. So
Yeah.
yes.
Did you do it as a recurring thing?
You know, I did, but it's not doing it. So talk to Linda Moe, and I've had some issues, but so I checked, but it won't let me change it. I can't change it.
Oh,
So I might have to just take it off and just remember to do it monthly. But I know you can set up reoccurring because that's how we use Vanco with our church and school. So I know you can set up we appreciate parents that do that.
One thing I found though with the check writing and or the monthly giving is that I miss the actual putting money in the mite box, as I don't do that as often because I've already written a check. So it's mostly my found money or spare change or something, and rather than the intentional calendar type, well, today I'm going to give thanks for and put 25 cents in or $1 or whatever. So that's kind of a different, almost not as good change, but I'm still giving more.
Just a person in church.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Hey, Sue Fuqua, did you see my chat?
Is Sue back on?
Yeah, she's there.
Okay. There she is.
Must be at work.
Okay, we are right at 10:45. So for those of you who are back, we thought we'd just start with a Q&A session. I know we've gotten through a lot of your questions as we went along, but maybe now that you're refreshed, you have thought of some more. So does anybody have any further questions? Dolores does.
Yeah, my question is, I was looking on the website this morning and I see that the district grant application and the guidelines are on, and the date that is on the website was February 2nd of 2021. So that was just this week. Now, I went in back in November when they first appeared and I printed them. And I want to know, is there a change to the grant guidelines on February 2nd, or is it the same as what I had made copies of back in November?
I remember changing like Jenny's email address on one of the documents. I don't remember if that was the guidelines or the application. And the date of one of the documents had September 17th instead of September 15th. So if you could, I would suggest making sure you start with these documents.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion?
Mhm.
Nyla, can I make a suggestion that could you have a revision date on all documents? Because
Oh,
then
that's a
that
good
way
idea.
we know if we are using an old one.
Okay,
And it could be right in the header or the footer so that it just appears on every page, or maybe at the end of the document.
great idea, great idea. And I think I saw Diane with her hand up. You're on mute, Diane.
Brain delay here. I forgot my question.
Oh, okay,
It'll
I'm
come to
sorry.
me.
Totally understand though.
I got interested in the answer of that one.
I think Dolores, we should have you
Oh.
sign up to be on the Gospel Outreach Committee for the next biennium.
I think that's a great idea.
You have wonderful ideas, and with your experience, please prayerfully consider it.
I
Anything
remember,
else?
Okay, go ahead, Diane.
I see the list of the grants for the biennium and some are highlighted and some are not. Is there a reason?
The highlighted grants have been paid. Yay.
So have they all been approved?
Those are all have been approved,
Okay.
correct. And those
Okay.
are the ones that we're paying out over this biennium. And as of last night, we are going to be funding 2 more additional grants.
Okay,
So yay, keep your mite donations coming. They're working.
okay.
So we're very excited. So yay. So actually, we are funding grant number
12, I remember.
12, the Link Los Angeles. And then
Mm.
we'll be funding grant number 7, the Equipping, Encouraging, and Empowering. So those 2 are going to be paid. So we'll be working our way down to the next one. So again, thank you for the mites.
I do have a question. We're in the process, Orphan Grain Train is in the process of opening a warehouse in Phoenix. And there's a possibility they may ask for a grant too. So that would take me out of the picture for being in the district. I still have California, Arizona, Nevada as my region. I'm now considered a collection center. My question is if I get the information to the people who are starting up the warehouse, that would preclude me from asking for a grant. Is that correct?
Do you know what they're asking for a grant for?
I have no, at this point, I don't know. I know they're putting something together. They've signed 2 contracts and both of them have fallen out. And with the church in La Mesa, or Mesa, I believe it's Mesa, Arizona. And I'm not part of that communication with them, so I don't have all the information about how they're working that. It's been done by Norfolk, Nebraska.
I think Susan Thomas is on that board. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, because you're all under the umbrella of Orphan Grain Train. I think we'd have to check with Jenny, as if there's a conflict. So are you not going to be in Southern California anymore, Steve?
Oh, no, I'm still here. I'm still.
Nyla, Arizona, we're in a 3rd contract. We're hoping to close in early March for a Phoenix warehouse. We're just getting ramped up with everything. I was planning on putting in a grant, but I don't know, like I said, if I can and Steve can as well, because I am on the board of the Orphan Grain Train in Arizona. But we're a little different. It had to be a little different. We're actually an LLC, but we're still part of, the whole Orphan Grain Train thing. Arizona has a special tax credit for certain qualified charities, and we're on it. And that's one way we're hoping to get funded with some stuff too, is because Arizona will actually pay you back for the money you give. So an individual can give $400 and a couple can give $800. And if you owe Arizona income tax, you get the money back.
Okay. So basically it's going to depend on the situation as we go forward. So, knowing that you guys are in both places and maybe are a separate entity, we'd have to assess that at that time.
Yeah.
Once it's more solidified.
Well, Susan, you and I can talk more about it too. And
yeah,
because I don't see us writing one this year. I don't know if I have time to get it done because of the COVID.
yeah.
At this point, I've got over 20 churches to go pick up goods now for the current project we have going for the backpacks and the school supply.
Awesome.
No, wow, that's awesome.
From Paso Robles down to Yuma, up to Henderson. So the places I have to go this year in the next 60 days.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, like I said, I think we did cover a lot of questions throughout the presentation. So we appreciate those questions and clarifications that the speakers were able to make for you. And what we're going to do right now is actually, I'm going to share my screen and give you the contact list that we're going to share with you by email for those who have attended the seminar. We're going to send this out along with a quick evaluation and some other pointer documents and things like that might help as well. We're just finalizing those. So give us a couple days. I would say by, I don't know, mid next week, you should expect another email from us with this information. And at the bottom of the sheet, we put in the website addresses that may help you as well. Okay. What else were we going to say about that? The other thing is the facilitators who were in your breakout rooms are going to follow back with you, let's say in about a month, and kind of check in. You can contact them if you have a question or anything, but they're going to check back with you. We want to make sure that if you do have a viable thing to pursue a grant for, that you have the resources you need. So we're just going to check in, you know, take it as a helpful reminder. Don't take it as, oh my goodness, they're calling us again. We're just trying to be helpful. If you, you know, just give them an answer as to, yeah, we're not ready this biennium, we'll do it next time. Whatever answer is appropriate, we just want to make sure that we're here for you to help go forward. Let's see. So at this point, I think I'll hand it over to Melissa for a Heart to Heart Sisters discussion.
Okay. Some of you may be familiar with Heart to Heart, but we thought we would go over this information with you. It was really critical for the Wednesday group because there were many pastors from cross-cultural ministries or ethnic ministries, language-specific ministries. But for those of you who might not know too much about Heart to Heart, it kind of came on the coattails of the Young Women Rep program, which was probably 25, 30 years ago and has been really successful. The women kind of looked at the organization and said, we need to grow our organization younger. So it was an intentional effort to reach out to young women. And it's really resulted in, you know, presidents and district presidents throughout the organization that have gone through that program, familiarize themselves with LWML and began to participate in an active way. So we also did the same thing and looked at the organization and said, well, it doesn't quite reflect the diversity that exists in our LCMS, and we'd love to see that happen. So in 2001, we came up with the idea of reaching out, and at that time it was specifically women from non-English speaking congregations, because those were the women that by nature, because they were language specific to something other than English, they were kind of isolated from the rest of the church. It's just the nature of that ministry. And so we really wanted to be a welcoming presence for them and to connect them with the life and work of the LWML and the church at large. That was my case because I came in and came to know the Lord and came in to the LCMS through a Spanish speaking ministry. So I only knew Spanish speaking Lutherans, and I didn't really feel connected with my adopted church body. So it wasn't until LWML really reached out to me and I got to experience some of the greater church, which was so fun for me. And so we wanted to do the same thing for women that came from many different cultures in our district. The Heart to Heart Sisters program is a way for women of many cultures to participate in ministry that happens all around the world, which is super cool for women that come from all over the world. And they've, some cases, been able to trace, oh, my father got to know a ministry that was started by LWML funds in Nigeria, and now I am a part of a Lutheran church in the United States, and I'm a professor at Concordia St. Paul. I mean, you can kind of see the connections that happen with women that have come to know the LWML through Heart to Heart Sisters program. Over the years, more than 150 women from multicultural ministries have participated in Heart to Heart, and probably as many on the district level. We now have district presidents that have come into LWML through Heart to Heart. We have vice presidents at the national level that have come in through Heart to Heart program. So you see how it's been a program that has really been fruitful for our organization. Another way that the LWML has really been welcoming to women of many cultures is the fact that our quarterly, the Lutheran Women's Quarterly, has had a Bible study in Spanish, probably for 10 years. And it was totally a God thing on how that came about. But, you know, people looking at that can see, oh, this organization values people from different cultures. So I think that's been a wonderful thing. Our program and the LWML has really been widely recognized throughout our synod as the way to do it. So I'm grateful for this in that in our organization now we see younger women, we see diverse women, and that's a beautiful picture of heaven. So I just wanted to share that information. And if you want to know more about Heart to Heart, Chris Mahler is our VP for special ministries. I probably said it wrong, but her department is the one that oversees Heart to Heart. I am also a contact for you if you have any other information. And if you want information, I'm glad to help you work through it. So thank you so much. That's it for me.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Does anybody have any questions on that for Melissa or for Chris? All righty. Then we're going to go back to Jenny. She's going to cover the multicultural mini grants and the short-term mission grants.
Okay, so the multicultural mini grants, just some guidelines for that. They need to have a viable mission, a viable vision, mission, and outreach to plan to reach cross-cultural people. And that, again, focus on sharing the gospel. The grant may not have been funded in the previous biennium under its constitution, organizational name. It cannot be concurrent with the LWML district grant. Only one project per organization can be submitted at a time. Again, it's the same thing, one original and 8 copies. Same deadline, September 15th. The amount for the multicultural grant, that is between $500 to $1,000. It may not be the amount received. I think it depends on what we have available, what funding we have available for those grants. And we do have funding available for those, but again, they need to reach across cultural. That's very important that they receive the multicultural.
So Linda has a question.
Go ahead.
You're muted.
There we go. One of the questions I would have on that is the other end. Are there ways to donate toward the cross-cultural ministry specifically?
I know at the district convention, generally one of the offerings goes to that. Is that correct, Nyla? Yes.
Yes, generally. Mm-hmm.
But don't we also have an ability to just send in a check or donate and say we want it to go to that ministry?
Definitely.
Sure. Okay.
I'm not sure that it's available currently because we're just setting up the online one.
Online, yeah.
But definitely if you put on your check that the address for Linda Moat is currently on the website as far as donating to that. And just note that it's for multicultural mini grants.
It's under the tab, her address or contact information for Linda.
Good point. Jenny, so you said you can't do it concurrent with a mission grant, but in that off biennium where you can't apply for another mission grant, could you do a multicultural for a different aspect of your ministry?
Yes, you can. So it's just the smaller amount. And I think the form was included on there, and it's a lot less intensive than the mission grants, but they're, want to keep in mind when you're putting down the reason for the grant, what is the project? What is the gospel outreach plans? What are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? And then specify why the funds are currently needed and how the funds are going to be used. It's just a two-page application for that.
Multicultural, it's like, is it 1,000 or 2,000 maximum?
That's maximum. It's 500 to 1,000, and again, depending on the funds that are available.
One of the good things about that grant is the money is payable as soon as the grant has been selected. There isn't a long wait for that money. It comes almost immediately because it's in our funding.
Yes. So it's.
But the selection process is the same as the mission grant, right, Jenny?
Correct.
The timing of that.
The timing of that. Yes, Barbara.
So do they go to the convention just like the other ones do for voting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So last biennium, we had 2 requests and they were both funded. Any questions about that? No, then no. The short-term, the application for the short-term missions. So the handouts has the guidelines on it. And again, that's limited to the money that the Pacific Southwest District has on hand. These are for, like if you're doing something with Vacation Bible School, like I know a lady goes to Alaska and teaches Vacation Bible School. Those funds will be available. It's 600 for an individual and 1,000 for a group. And this does not have to be submitted in with the convention or in the biennium. And this can be submitted at any time. The application is received, reviewed, and then if there's questions to follow up. If not, it gets approved for funding and it gets funding. The mission, the volunteer assignment does need to occur during the biennium. So it does need to be done during the biennium time. The applicant must be a member of a Pacific Southwest District church or an English district church whose LWML is affiliated with the Pacific Southwest District. The executive committee of the Pacific Southwest Districts has the final approval on each application. And if it gets approved, it will not be considered for selection again at least 2 biennium from the payout of the grant. So if there was a payout, say in 2012, it wouldn't be considered again until 2016. So again, we want to make sure it's available for multiple people to use, not somebody doing a yearly mission like that. So it's available for more other people. And then we also ask the applicant to make themselves available to give a presentation of their mission trip, either at convention or district meeting. So if that's awarded, then that they might be asked for that. So selection is based on the available funds. Grant amount is based on the number of individuals, whether it's 1 for 600 or a group for 1,000. And then the funds already raised by the applicant will be considered for the process.
I have a question
Sure.
about if someone has been on a short-term mission, how does the zone or society find out about people that have been or who might be available to come talk about their mission?
Oh, good question. I guess you call the grant applicant or the VP Gospel Outreach.
Okay, and find out like who's been, because you said there's no limit during a biennium on other than the amount of funds available.
Correct.
So if there's 5 people, if you can fund 5 people during a biennium, you can do that. Or if there's only 1, it's just upon request, right?
If it was one group that was going, it would be the 1,000. If it's 5 people with 5 different missions, then yes. But if it's 5 people for the same mission trip, it's 1,000 for a group.
Right, but I mean, as far as like how many grants can be given out.
There's not a limit. It's limited by the funds available.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Great questions.
Yes.
Anything else? Well, we certainly appreciate your attendance here today. I hope you found it helpful. And my plan is to shoot you another email with that contact list, a couple getting started pointers type documents. I'll include the multicultural mini grant application and the short-term mission grant application. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got I think it's a 3-question evaluation. Well, it's a link that will go to a Google form where you can just type in your information online. So we would love to hear what feedback you have for us so that we can do this again and do it better. we're here to help, and we hope that you take us up on that. We just want the gospel to reach as many people as possible.
Yes. And we couldn't do it without all of you.
Exactly. It's a team effort. The teamwork makes the dream work. Is that how it goes, Linda? All right. Any final questions, wrap-up items?
I just want to say thank you so much. I learned a lot and I feel
Awesome.
supported. Okay.
Awesome.
Good. That's what we want.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. The team is going to stay on and debrief so we can do better next time. So feel free to end your session as you.
Bye, Steve.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Come on, Dolores, stay on. You can be part of the team.
Yeah, we'll sign you up today.
I have. We'll get a hold of that nominating committee.
Oh, I'll pay attention.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Dolores.
Okay, did you, oh, this was just to me, I guess. So Sue Fuqua said it would be great to have a Zoom of a collection of testimonies from short-term grants.
Good idea.
It's a great idea.
Yeah,
Something that would then be available for district-wide.
Yeah.
that could be maybe one of the connections we could do.
Oh,
That's
One
a
of the
great
connection
idea.
group. That would be a good agenda
good
item.
Yeah.
idea. Yep.
for
That's what your church sends out weekly as our connection page.
connection. You have a
Another good
future-
idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get that on the website too, eventually, a connections page.
Mhm.
Writing this down. Short-term multicultural mini grant testimonials.
Yeah, for both cultural and short term.
Mhm. Well, I don't know if Nader's still there, but I guess I never was able to communicate with this Byung Kim. They didn't have a microphone, and I chatted with him, but I think it's a him.
I'm still here.
Oh, Nader. Hi, Nader.
Neither. Yes.
We're finished. We're just going to debrief as a committee, so you can
Okay.
end your session.
All right.
Thanks a
I'll
lot.
excuse myself.
Glad you were here.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
But Mr. Kim, I couldn't communicate with him because he didn't respond on the chat, and I guess I could have emailed him. So I'm not sure if he is there, was there. I don't know.
Can you end? Can you end him?
I think to end him, I have to kind of report him as a violator. That's the only thing I can see, so I don't want to do that.
Okay, that's fine.
Wait, let me try this remove thing. Oh, okay, I can uncheck this report. I'll just remove him.
Oh, okay. Remove him, but not report him.
I didn't want to get somebody in trouble
Right.
for my ignorance of how to use this.
A violator.
Okay, man, you were right, Melissa. Wednesday, there wasn't as much discussion and questions and popping in and, interrupting. They were I'm going to sit here and listen. But I think in the end, with the breakout rooms and stuff, they did get to kind of share and say their piece, but it was a lot more lively interaction today.
Oh, good.
Good to
Friday.
hear.
There's a lot more trust building that needs to happen among other cultures.
Yeah.
So I had a
More women involved. I mean, most of the women or not all of
Know
them,
each other.
had a connection with LWML already.
True.
True. I had a question that was brought up by Steve Rice's, the discussion of his project. So he's wanting to serve the border region, and actually on both sides of the border.
Mm.
So how are you, I mean, like, how is LBCM funded? Because their work is entirely on the Mexican side of the border. Their office is here. So, and let me put something else before you, the Synod has empowered a set of district presidents that do ministry along the border. It's a group called Frontera Ministries. So it was President Stotterona, it's President Gibson, the President of Rocky Mountain, President of Texas. And I'm on that board also. And for the Synod, they have designated the border region as a thing kind of like by itself. That ministry is very fluid along the border. And so they have looked at the border region as being 25 miles on the north and 25 miles on the south. That may be something further down the road that the LWML might want to consider. But I'm just curious, how would that be a no then, because he's working on both sides of the border? And how does the LBCM thing work into this whole mix?
Yeah, he couldn't further work on the southern side of the border because it's not in the geographical
Okay.
district region. So
You might want to have a conversation with him about that before he works on submitting that grant.
Sure.
what if the people that they're helping though are cross the border and receive the help on, the US? I don't know. I guess it's not clear what he's proposing for the grant, but yeah, it has to be within the geographical region.
Right.
Okay.
Hasn't Pastor Ramon received a district grant?
Oh, yeah.
Well, how does that work then?
Yeah.
Because 100% of his work is in Tijuana and on the Mexico side.
No,
His
he
office
works,
is here.
but he works a lot with churches in our area, in our district, who go down to work there.
Yeah, but all the work actually happens in Tijuana.
Don't
He
remember
has,
Pastor
he's-
Ramon or LBCM are
Right.
directly getting a grant.
yeah, he has.
Then-
And I think it's mostly been for a vehicle, for his van.
which he does use,
He's in our district.
right?
But the gospel outreach is in Tijuana. I see what you're saying, Melissa. It's kind of,
Well, and I think there's been some tightening of the guidelines. I don't know, more recently, as far as that. So,
But yeah, we used to build roofs too.
hmm?
We used to put roofs on and take care of maintenance, fix kitchens, and there were a lot of grants that wouldn't pass
Right.
today.
Right.
Okay. That gives me some more clarity.
And then, I don't think that both Susan and Steve can do one, because isn't Susan's group under the umbrella of the Orphan Grain Train? I know she said they were a LLC, so.
Well, I had a question on that, in that we're all under the umbrella of LWML,
Yes.
but a society is a separate group. So if Orphan Grain Train has a different region in Arizona than they do in Southern California, isn't that the same as having districts or zones that are different under the same umbrella? If
yeah,
it's a whole different, Orphan Grain Train is not only, it doesn't all go through one entity. They have different regions that function separately, sort of like our
Yeah.
zones and our districts do.
Mm.
So,
Right. So if there's an Arizona chapter and they're say they're an LLC, so they're organizationally, they are.
a separate unit.
yeah,
They
if
are,
they have
yeah.
a separate board, it seems like they're
Yeah.
separate, but
That constitutional organizational name. So I guess what it was, the group that Susan's working with, what would be their constitutional organizational name?
Right.
right.
You might have to
It says.
specify those things. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's like Orphan Grain Train of Arizona LLC, I would say that's a separate organization. But I don't know. Because, like she's saying, they had to become an LLC so that they could qualify for the Arizona tax credit,
Right.
donor list or whatever. So, and I understand that because I know how that tax process works in Arizona. It has to be in Arizona.
Yeah, and just
Say-
general business wise, from a liability standpoint, if someone, slips and falls at that Arizona location, if you have it in a separate LLC, then the liability ends there. It doesn't, they can't come and take away your California warehouse or whatever other warehouse because of this slip and fall if someone dies or that kind of thing. It's a
I
liability.
just think it's going to be important to have clarity on that before these grants start getting put together. So we need to be sure of our answer for those people.
Yeah.
Another thought I had, and this is about our process of for example, maybe it can be considered that after convention, the mission grant process is disabled until whatever, January, February. And that gives everybody a starting point. And also it gives the opportunity for the board to finalize their documents for a new biennium if there are any tweaking to be done. Otherwise, people, like the one gal who had everything ready in November last year. First of all, her documents are going to be, wrong. I mean, she found out here, but also that's kind of like not starting out everybody on this is our new biennium year. This is the new grant application. We now open it up, whatever date that is, January, February, or March, however the board decides. But that might be something that will help avoid confusion.
Yeah.
Something to consider.
Good thought.
Yeah, I just thought they opened up in December for new applications, but that was we have them awarded in June, and then the new forms are available usually by December, because you have a new committee putting things together and making sure that everything is according to what they think. So that, I think, falls in with what you're suggesting. Maybe we just need to publicize that better.
So if you were to go to the website in August, would you see mission grant applications?
Probably the old ones would still be up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that probably needs to be addressed too, that we get those things taken down in a timely manner and things changed according to, as soon as we can after something has changed. Like, if we have to change Linda Moat's contact, or who's going to be the contact because she's moving.
I think that's something that could be taken down, even the application before convention, because the grants have already been approved to be put on there. So it's something maybe you can.
Or take the application down as soon as the deadline has passed in
Right.
That
September.
would make sense.
Hey, Jenny, why don't you add that or suggest that be added to your procedures leader manual
Oh,
section?
good, yeah.
So take down the current application after the deadline for submission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. I think another thing that might be worth addressing is, I can't remember her name. She was concerned because she's not funded any other way, and she was looking at how to do grant to grant to grant.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that she has a few other sources that she's looking at, but I think she needs to maybe have someone have a conversation with her about what it's going to appear as if she continues just using LWML as a funding source and finding all the different levels to do that on.
Yeah, she and
Yeah.
Pastor Nader were together. Pastor Nader also attended on Wednesday.
Okay.
Maybe she needs to more focus her grant for the one part, because she's talking about training and then the gatherings. So, because if she puts both of those in there, then she wouldn't be available to put it in for another biennium. But also the reality of, you can put in the grant, but it may not get voted on. So you can't count on that as a funding source for the next 5 years.
And, maybe they can partner with another church in that area, and maybe another church in that area would support them as a.
That's something to discuss at the district level. The other question that went with that is, how does national LWML look upon people putting in a grant for something that they've just received from a district the year before? Do they have limitations like we do? Because ours say you can't get a district one if you have an LWML grant. Does LWML limit that if they have a district grant? Do we know?
I don't think so. I think that came up, spoke with Nancy, but I can double check on that.
Yeah, Nancy would be a great source of information for that question.
Great resource.
Yes.
But I think the session went really well.
Yeah.
You know, just from the feedback and the amount of questions that they brought forward, I think they were really helped by having this seminar.
I did bring it to Sue and the pastor about Poblo, if they were connected with Poblo, and
I did too.
aware of Poblo, and there is another group. He's Muslims for the Messiah, I think. So that is another group, and also to bring up too about the Thrive in Action cards when they're doing these dinners and stuff like that. I know our congregation currently where I worship at doesn't utilize that a lot.
We don't either.
It's a forgotten resource out there. Free money.
Right.
Totally.
And
Yeah,
there's another, I'm
We
sorry,
do a
Melissa.
lot.
Another possible group for at least one of our guests today was because they're dealing with immigrants. We have Lutheran Immigration.
Refugees,
LMRS, that they might be able to tap into for some help. I don't know about financial, but certainly about working with people.
Mhm.
They're very responsive.
And I think they have in Arizona, there's a group, there's the
Sure.
Social Ministry of the Southwest, which is an RSO of LCMS. They're real involved with the Lutheran immigration projects.
Well,
It'd be nice for us to have those extra resources maybe available. You had a nice listing at the bottom of our contacts, but maybe we've left a few out that we could add.
Yeah. Maybe.
Or promote the CMS site that has the RSOs and different information on it.
Yeah, I just pulled that list to give to Barbara Wade for a potentials for the speaker list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to mention the speakers list when she was asking about completed short-term missions. They should be on our speakers list, along with some of our past officers who would be able to speak about LWML.
Right.
And yes, I've suggested that to our past VPs of Christian life. There's some of us oldies but goodies that are available.
Yeah. I think the revised agenda worked really well, Nyla.
Yeah.
That was good that we spent some time on that. I think it went very smooth.
Yeah.
We used all those 25 minutes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let it go a little bit longer even, I think, because I had a schedule from the first two sections. I had left time in my section for Pastor Dominic, but
Have any of the participants completed the diagram? Had any of them started working on that at all? Nobody in my group had, but the one gal had a lot of the grant already written.
Oh, wow. Yeah, mine were just coming up with ideas, both of mine, and trying to flesh that out. So we had a lot of discussion about how that works. So I will be checking back probably within less than a month to see how they're doing on that. Of course, Margie's easy because she's at our preschool and I see her regularly.
cool.
Is that the Trinity Lutheran Preschool, Linda?
No,
No, okay,
it's Mount Olive in Poway.
okay. I think Trinity's in Temecula.
I'm trying to, Barbara's in Arizona and she's Arizona, right? She moved to Lake Mesa?
I think it's Nevada.
She's in Wickenburg. Barbara Wade.
No,
No.
Barbara
Coverdale.
Coverdale.
Oh.
She's in
Riverdale.
Mesquite, Nevada.
Mesquite, oh, Nevada,
I
okay.
think it's Nevada.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're right.
Mesquite, Nevada.
Yeah.
But she's working on a single, an individual membership of LWML because she doesn't have one at church.
Yeah.
So she will be the LWML contact and maybe the submitter, but she's got a good group to work with. They'll work the preschool. She'll be the Board of Ed.
Yeah,
and everything.
she tried to get the preschool director to attend, but he wasn't available. So,
Yeah, but I think she's got good information to take and I think
Yeah.
that'll work out.
oh, I'm still recording. Shh.